Coming up at 11, Williams have evacuated communities along Florida's Gulf Coast.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Amelia Lee. Tonight, millions of people in Florida are trying to get out of the way of Hurricane Milton. The storm is now a Category 5 and expected to make landfall on Florida's west coast before dawn on Thursday, potentially as a Category 3 hurricane. CBS's Anna McAllister is in Tampa, one of many coastal communities under a mandatory evacuation.
A local emergency currently exists.
Law enforcement in over a dozen Florida counties loudly telling their communities now is the time to leave. As Hurricane Milton nears Florida's west coast, the interstates heading inland have been slow going. The real speed was found in the skies. Federal hurricane hunters got bumped around as they rode into the heart of the storm Tuesday. Winds howling at 165 miles per hour. Forecasters predict Milton could be the worst storm in a century.
This is water that's going to violently be pushed onshore from the Gulf of Mexico with destructive wave action on top of it. And you're going to have structural damage to buildings. Some buildings will wash away. Evacuation routes will be quickly cut off.
Milton is expected to hit the same region slammed by Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. Helene destroyed everything in Maria Green's Treasure Island home, and she expects Milton will level the final blow.
This one coming, we're going to lose everything.
All along the Gulf Coast, people have been piling up their waterlogged and destroyed belongings curbside, and now Milton's winds could pick all this trash up and send it flying, projectiles that could cause even more damage. But that added risk was not enough to convince Tommy Hall to evacuate. He says he's prepared to ride it out.
I mean, we can leave, but you're looking at the interstate. By the time you find a place, it's no place. You can't go to Georgia, you can't go to Carolina, so you got to go west toward Pensacola, Panama City. I'm pretty sure all that's booked.
Local governments and the National Guard have been racing to move debris off of city streets and onto giant piles, some of them 2 stories high. Florida's governor has ordered landfills and waste collection sites to remain open throughout the night. Anna McAllister, CBS News, Tampa, Florida.
The American Red Cross is calling for volunteers as Hurricane Milton approaches after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Right now, more than 2,000 volunteers are helping out, including nearly 30 from Kentucky, more than 500 in Florida, and another 400 are on the way. The Red Cross is offering virtual Heroes Needed training for people interested in sheltering and logistics roles.
You don't have to be anything more than a caring heart that wants to show compassion to people.
Volunteers should be ready to deploy within days with a 2-week commitment. The organization covers transportation, lodging, and meals. Donations collected in Jenkins for people impacted by Hurricane Helene are now in North Carolina and Tennessee. Several loads of donations were filled throughout the week. A group of volunteers connected with a group in Kingsport, Tennessee that is distributing those items. Organizer Chris Anderson says it means a lot to see how folks impacted by flooding more than 2 years ago are now returning that favor.
You know, seeing that church's recreation building filled with the donations that we helped collect, you know, I took a Kentucky state flag with us down there, and I didn't do that as a, you know, any kind of dig or anything like that, but I wanted to show those folks what Eastern Kentuckians are made of and the love that Eastern Kentuckians have for, you know, for everybody, no matter what state flag you're under.
Anderson says they are pausing the collection of donations to shift into long-term plans for folks in need. As many Floridians brace for impact from Hurricane Milton, some are choosing to stay put and weather the storm. Alexa Minton talked with 2 native Kentuckians now living in Florida about their decision to ride out that storm.
Hurricane Helene was a warning. This one, I think the gravity of it is a lot stronger.
Hurricane Milton is barreling towards Florida with the promise of devastating storm surge, heavy rains, and damaging winds. Around 14 counties in the state are under some sort of evacuation order.
This time, there's no joking about it. Everyone is solemn.
But for two native Kentuckians, now Florida residents, they've made the decision to hunker down and stay through the storm.
I feel safe here in our home, also because we were tracking where it was supposed to hit.
Angie Roworth is from London, Kentucky, and now currently resides in the Tampa Bay area, where mandatory evacuation orders have been put in place.
It's hard to leave your home not knowing what it's going to be like when you come back. So sounds simple. People think you just hop in the car and okay, goodbye. And I used to think that too when I would hear that living in Kentucky. Oh, everybody should just leave their home when they're in Florida. But it's a very difficult decision to make.
For many choosing to stay, like Angie, as well as Lexington native Dana Fritz, it's about fully being prepared.
So we're preparing for the heavy winds. So my house, I have 20 sandbags, 4 quick dams, and windows have been shattered.
Traffic was terrible, even on the little road that we traveled on. The interstate has a lot of traffic, and even the hotels further in are starting to fill up with people evacuating.
And for folks like Angie and Dana, with gas shortages, traffic, and limited hotel access, they claim to feel safer staying put in their homes for now.
Feel pretty safe. That could be famous last words. I don't know.
If you were to evacuate 2 days ago or even left yesterday, I think it would have been fine. But at this point, I would not risk being stuck on the interstate.
For WKYT, I'm First Alert meteorologist Alexa Minton.
Dana and Angie both say they have gathered plenty of food, water, and other essentials to ride out the storm.
There we go. Winds are we still have Category 5 Hurricane Milton. Winds are at 160 miles per hour. Barometric pressure is at 915. There's the latest right there, moving northeast at 12 miles per hour. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the latest with the forecast track. And you're noticing, as mentioned, it's still Category 5. We'll go ahead and start the clock and take a look here as we go throughout your Wednesday, Thursday, noticing how that cone is now shifting a little bit farther south. Now, this does not mean, let me emphasize this, does not mean it's going to hit Sarasota. What this means is it can hit somewhere in this area. It can still hit Tampa, or it could hit north of Fort Myers. It can hit somewhere in this cone. So that's what we have to keep an eye on. But then it goes inland a little bit farther. There's Orlando, there's Melbourne, there's the Fort Pierce area. Again, it could hit somewhere in this cone, not necessarily taking a direct hit, and then it's out of here, or out of Florida as a Category 1 hurricane. With that being said, hurricane warnings are in effect for the central portion of Florida. The area shaded in orange, those are tropical storm warnings. And right now, closer to home, live pinpoint Doppler radar showing a clean sweep across eastern Kentucky. We are seeing some ground clutter being picked up. And outside right now, look at temperatures, 40s and 50s. I'll have the complete First Alert forecast coming up in a few minutes. Amelia.
All right, Eric, thank you. A deadly helicopter crash in Owen County is still under investigation after 3 people were killed. Gail Ailman, Bethany Aiken, and James Welsh died when their air evac helicopter crashed yesterday. Investigators were back on scene today to figure out what caused the crash. Kentucky State Police are handling the death investigation, while federal agencies like the FAA focuses on the crash itself. Police in Pike County are asking for help finding a man who they say is considered armed and dangerous. If you look at your screen, you can see a picture of Kevin Hopkins. Police say he is known to frequently be in the Greasy Creek and Marrowbone areas. If you have any information about where Hopkins might be, you are asked to contact the Pikeville Police Department at 606-437-5111. Voters in Clay County have the option to vote on whether or not cannabis businesses can operate in the county. Not only is this on the ballot in the county, but in the city of Manchester. Clay County Clerk Beverly Kraft says since city and county officials filed the resolution, it is now in the voters' hands.
I think because of how it was on the wet dry vote, because there was so much, back and forth on the wet dry vote, I think they wanted to allow the voters to make that choice here.
I'm not not sure. We don't have a...
If cities or counties did not add this to the ballot, it will automatically follow state law on the 1st of 2025. Voter registration in Kentucky is now closed, but registered voters can vote on November 5th. The Prestonsburg Fire Department has a new chief at the helm, bringing decades of experience to the table and moving forward as the first female chief in the department's history. Selena Thomas has made a career out of caring for her community after deciding at a young age that her dream was to be a firefighter. After more than 30 years at the Prestonsburg Fire Department, she is the new fire chief, saying there has been a shift in the field over the last couple of decades and more women should be proud to serve.
Women in the fire service, I think that if you can do the job, you know, do it. And if this is what you really want to do, then jump into it. And, you know, maybe in 30 years after being in the fire service, you'll become the chief.
She has been a part of the department since 1991 and hopes to lead the firefighters for years to come. The Estill County Sheriff was awarded the Humane Society of the United States Law Enforcement Award for working to defeat animal cruelty. Even though it's not usually a sheriff's job to protect animals, Sheriff Chris Flynn has stepped up to the plate in Estill County. Todd Belvins, Kentucky State Director of the United States Humane Society, says Sheriff Flynn's office has made it known that they take animal cruelty seriously.
We felt it was only the right thing to do to recognize all that good work with this award.
Last year, Sheriff Flynn shut down a puppy mill operation. He has also taken pets to be spayed and neutered to prevent overpopulation. Coming up on Mountain News at 11, hunting season is starting up, and we have tips for you on what you need to know.
And in the world of weather, we'll see plenty of sunshine again for the day on Wednesday with temperatures near normal. But there's a big change somewhere in the forecast. Details in the First Alert forecast in a few minutes. Stay with us.